This is the Unearthing Art Podcast with Michele and Beck Lee, where we dig into the messy reality of making art that matters, raw and real conversations about being an artist, navigating the creative process, and expressing our honest and sometimes weird selves. Hello, stranger. It's been a while.
It has. We've had a few weeks break of the podcast for a couple of different reasons, and it worked out all for the best because you were a bit unwell and then I was a bit unwell, and then you've got this amazing solo exhibition, which today is the day that we're recording is the first official open day of that, which I think is a really great timing. And then I went away for a few days and had a wonderful offline, off-grid kind of experience for 4 days. So now we're just checking back in.
I feel like I've been in a big bubble, Beck, like a real, they call it like baby brain when you have a baby, like because you're just in this baby bubble when they come out and all you can think about is the baby and you're literally like block the whole world out. I definitely was in a paint bubble, like no concept of anything else, especially for the last week where it was like delivery time.
You've been up to midnight some nights on delivery countdown and just like working so hard.
It's been crazy. I mean, if I tell you the long story today, we would take way too long. Yeah. But it's been crazy and lots of good crazy though, in a way of like, there's very few times that you can get really that obsessed about things, where you're just immersed in it completely.
Yeah.
And I think I immersed myself quite well, like literally was in paint. Yeah.
As I said, it's your opening day of the exhibition. You're going to have an official kind of opening night on Saturday night. But just to let everyone know, because it's the 20th of April, 2023, because, people can be listening to this many months and years into the future. But it's open today. It's at Fenton and Fenton in Melbourne. Yeah. And I've been seeing just some of the, visuals and videos hitting the Fenton and Fenton Instagram page and also your page at Michele Luminato. And it's just looking gorgeous and I can't wait. I can't unfortunately get to be there from Brisbane to see it in person, but I'm really looking forward because I know that Fenton and Fenton will be putting on a fabulous show, and it's a wonderful showroom that you've got all full of your work, and there's a lot to the presentation as well. So I want to see lots of video, ma'am, so I can have that experience.
I'm going to feel like I'm very spammy in the next few weeks because I really haven't had a lot of time to share. Like I literally was just so immersed in the painting process that I just had no capacity to really get on there and overshare what was coming out of the studio. So now it's going to be revealing all of it. There's 35 pieces that are exhibited. So it's a lot of work, varying in sizes and from some very large ones to some very small ones. So it's kind of, it's got the spectrum. What's really lovely about Fenton and Fenton is they do such a good job at presenting it in context for people to really visualize what that could be like if they were to take that into their home and experience that for themselves. And they did an amazing photo shoot, which I was honored to be a part of and really watch them do their magic. So I felt like it was just such a perfect marriage of partnership with, the kind of work I want to make and how they really bring it to life for collectors. And there's some amazing shots that we will be showing today. Actually, there's some coming out already in the stories this morning. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah. And I did get to have some photos of myself taken, which is not my favorite thing to do.
And after all this really intensive period as well, you've had to pull yourself together enough to have photos.
It was actually like a really good excuse to scrub up a little bit because I was literally picking paint and medium off for days. I even at one point had to take off my wedding ring set and just put it aside because I kept, getting so much stuff on it. So it was nice to clean up and actually feel a little bit pretty for a minute instead of
after not washing, eating, or doing anything else for a week, and you're just covered in grime.
Yeah. And my
I'm a
husband looked at the
human.
photos and he was like, who is this?
That's wonderful.
Exactly. Because, when I'm painting, I'm
Gets rough in there.
unsightly. And not only does it get rough, but I am rough. I am filthy. My pants, my track pants, as they call them over here in Australia, my trackies are just covered in stuff because I'm on the ground. But I'm up and down, painting and like it's just anything goes back. Anything goes.
It's flying.
It's flying.
I know that we're going to be unpacking your whole experience of this from beginning to now to beyond, both in the Origin Art membership. We're going to go into a lot more detailed debrief there. But also I feel like we're going to be talking about this from different aspects on the podcast for a little while as well. What I really wanted to kind of relax into today was just to chat more about, aside from all of those details and all the learnings and the business side and the practical side, just more like I've been watching you make some massive leaps in yourself. And just to give a bit of context, because I know this. And again, there's a lot of details to this story, which we could talk about for hours. But a really brief summary is that, as we've talked about, this new sculptural work that you're doing has been in the background for a couple of years, and then you put it aside and then you started experimenting. You had an open studios when you really felt like, okay, I'm going to bring some of these pieces out into my open studio and let people see them. And then very quickly, that's what kicked off a series of events to Fenton and Fenton saying, let's do a solo exhibition. Pretty quickly, you were like, okay, now this work that I've been developing, but I've just really started to show and share, now I actually need to create a big body of that work for this exhibition. And you mentioned the sizing before, and I know that in that time period of planning what you needed to make for the exhibition, you kind of broke your own record for the size that you'd created this at multiple times. You're like, okay, well, I'll create some of these bigger things. And you're like, okay, I need something bigger. So you went bigger again and bigger again. So, and then there was a last minute venue change, and you had to suddenly increase the number because you wanted to really fill that space and have your vision realized. And so there's a lot of practical stuff there, but just like in an emotional growth.
That's where my head is too, because honestly I was thinking about that, and like I just felt like it was literally the biggest growth emotional experience that I could have. And what I'm really proud of, like I'm really proud of the work because obviously I put everything into it. I did not leave anything in the tank, but I'm really proud of who I've become because of it, and what I've had to do for myself, and what I've had to let go of, and what I've had to lean into, and how I've actually been like, I'm actually capable of more than I have always thought again. And I think that that's what's good about pressure. Well, let me speak from past experience. Pressure has cracked me before in ways that makes me crumble, literally get on the floor and cry, crumble. And I was really feeling like I really want to do this work, and I was really committed from the beginning, because I actually asked them, I said, can I do a solo show right when they said they want to start carrying my work? I knew I could do it. I hadn't done it yet, but I was like, no, I can do this. I want to do this. And when you want to do it, you find a way to do it, even if you don't know how to do it. Because I didn't know how to do most of it. Seriously, like, especially with the sculptural work. And then 30 days later, they're like, hey, how about we do a solo show? So that's kind of how that evolved. But I think, if you really believe in yourself, like, it's okay to ask, because then they know that you believe, then they become more believing as well. Does that make sense? Because I don't think they would have necessarily asked me quickly if I wouldn't have already asked. And then it did evolve and change in terms of timeline and where it was at and stuff like that, because that's just the way it worked out, which worked out even better. By the way, the universe, I just so believe, has a better plan than what you have in your head.
It's like the universe kept one-upping the bid on you. You asked for the solo show, and yep, and then the universe said, how about a little bit more, Michele? And you're like, okay, yes. And then the universe was like, why don't we take that up another notch? And you're like, okay, I got you. I'm doing it. From the outside looking in, it feels like that, what you're saying about both wanting it and believing that you could do it, felt like that was somewhat the difference between, like you said before, the pressure crumbling versus the pressure maybe you lifting, because that's what I saw. Despite all of this as well, you've also still been having calls within the Origin Art membership during this time. So in those calls, I've been amazed to see you sharing perspectives and kind of approaches that you've been, I don't know, it strikes me that that you've been realizing within the crucible of, within the fire of this pressure, you've been then coming to the calls and going, hey, when we talk about our authentic core, I've had some deeper realizations about it, and it's this, this, and this. And I'm like, this woman is like strung out making a whole exhibition, and yet somehow she's got this additional insight now, which I found really useful. She's brought this additional insight that's, to me, shown you found a deeper place within yourself to go, even deeper than you had before within that process. That's what I was really kind of blown away by. And that's what I mean by I have seen that happen with you, because I've been able to see what you then turn that into something to bring to others. What did that feel like in that fire, in that moment?
Yeah, I think, and I'm being completely honest and transparent here, like having it come easy hasn't always been natural for me. Things felt like it was hard. I had to work for things really, in a hard way. Like I think we talked about, like in school, didn't come easy. Art was fun, but I was always like, had to work a little harder, that kind of thing. So for me to relax into like, let this be easy, let this come with ease, as in, with flow. I would literally say a mantra as I would wake up and go to bed with my eyes closed. Success is inevitable. Success is inevitable. I would literally tell myself, to the point where like I could feel it, and I know that sounds a little cliche and cheesy, but I had to get through some really tough times where the previous version of myself would have cried and crumbled. I mean, so many things happened. So many things. Like, honestly, the list is so long. This is going to take a while to unravel because it has been going on for some time. And some of that has to do with me and my work, and some of it was just logistical, things that impacted things. And then there's the work itself. Like, there's just so many layers to doing this kind of work and doing work that pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I think that's one thing that I wanted to get from it. There's lots of things I wanted to get from it, but one of the things I really wanted to get from it was to really push myself out of my comfort zone and do things that I knew I had a vision for, but I did not know how to do it. And so it tested my skills, tested my belief, tested my material. Like, there was just all these things that really pushed the boundaries. And so I failed a lot along the way. And instead of going, oh my God, like I had no time to wallow in my sorrows. I really didn't. Yeah. And I think that's the good thing about when you're in a bit of a time crunch too, especially towards the end. You're like, it's go time. There's no time to feel sorry for yourself. There's no time to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm going to start crying for the next 24 hours, because again, without getting into the details of it yet, sometimes things were not going in the way that I had wanted them to. Give you one vague example right now without too much detail, but because I had worked through so many pieces, which I like to call them studies, whether they're large or small, that's the process that I teach in Origin Art. The volume of that, which I'm a big fan of, like, you've got to do the volume of work. It's the volume of work that teaches you things and shows you things. and inspires new things, right? I had done this bigger piece at the beginning. Then I made all this smaller work, and then I went around to bigger work again, and I had learned so much. And then when I saw that earlier work, I was like, I do not like you, because I'd grown. I had evolved it to the point where it felt more of what I envisioned. And so I was like, well, what do I do now? And so there was a bit of a crisis, because something that seemed like it was going to work didn't work anymore. It was me saying, no, that's not the standard that we're at now, because we're over here now. And that created a little chaos. But how I responded in that was really interesting, because for me, I was kind of observing and going, well, what do we do? I was literally having just a quick scream to myself, 14-year-old, like I really sounded like my 14. I was like, what are we going to do? Oh my God. Like it was,
I've already done that, because you'd already done this big piece.
I photographed it, and I was like, don't like you.
That you couldn't imagine seeing that on the wall at the exhibition.
No. And it was literally like, what are you going to do? I had to make some decisions, and wallowing in my feeling bad about it was not one of those options. And I do believe that meditation and tapping and all this stuff, I'm serious.
Got you through, yeah.
It got me through it, because I went to a deeper place. I did not go into, oh my gosh, poor me. What am I going to do now? I went into, what is the best way, my most resourceful way to solve this right now? And I was literally gambling. Like I felt like a little bit of a gambler. Like this is either going to really, save it, or it's just not going to work. But I was like, what have I got to lose? And then here's the other thing, because that failed, it then made me push harder on another one that I was going to be like, well, I hope that one gets through, but I don't know if I'm going to have enough time. Then I was like, oh no, you were going to pull through, because this one might not. And so instead of one failing one, I ended up with two.
And then I don't know what the timing was, but I think you probably then had to push through and do a whole bunch more that you weren't even anticipating at that point in time.
Exactly. And the other wild card was I got the flu the week before the final week. So I was literally sick with the flu with my whole family and could not paint. I would go paint for an hour, and I would go lay down for an hour, and I would go paint for an hour and lay down. Like I literally was like, you cannot have the flu, but how do you finish an exhibition and have the flu? It was rough. It was definitely rough.
So what I get a sense of about how you were going deeper, getting these deeper insights, and immediately it sounds like that pressure was creating a lot of iterative growth day on day on day. Like you were saying, you'd already kind of surpassed yourself within a few days of that. I'm guessing, or I'm wondering how that was happening like that, and it's reflected in the kind of decisions you're talking about there. Is part of you saying this is what I asked for, this is the opportunity, and it's an opportunity to really show, to really be fully myself and kind of show the most extended version of who I can be right now. Not to say that there's not going to be another Michele in a year's time, but you wanted to really be all that you could be in this opportunity. So in those moments, it wasn't enough to say of that painting, oh, but I could put that on the wall and it's going to be fine, because you were really wanting to push the limits of expressing, and this kind of comes back, I think, to the authentic core we talk about. You really wanted to not just to have an exhibition. You wanted to have an exhibition which was authentically, expressively, as much of Michele as she could get out of herself. And so something that wasn't quite there wasn't what you really wanted. So that kind of gave you that energy to this isn't what I want, is more. And not settling. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You didn't want to settle for something that was acceptable, would have been completely wonderful in the eyes of other people, but this was the moment that you wanted to live that entirely. What you teach as well, I guess, is a little bit of practicing what you teach too.
Definitely. I I knew I wouldn't be satisfied with me saying, oh, that'll do. That'll have to do. It's already done. For me, I wasn't satisfied. I couldn't be proud of it in the way that felt like it really did express what I wanted it to feel like. And I always go back to, how do you know when a painting's done? When it feels the way I want it to feel, and when you learn how to express it better, and then that's the standard, then you're never satisfied. Well, maybe other people are, but I'm never satisfied. Once my standard is raised and, oh, that's how I express it, then that's the bar. And then everything needs to raise to that bar. And I think that's the other thing that I was thinking about too, is when you work through a body of work like this, from a volume perspective, you just raise the bar along the way, because that volume helps you see things that you couldn't see before. Yeah. It helps you work quicker as well. What I also found really interesting is that I've let go of some fussiness and over tinkering that I do with things, because I was like, is that going to actually make or break it, or does it already have it? I'm like, okay, let go. It's okay.
That's great. I love that, because you're right. Having a deadline is a great way to get you to drop like you say, the fussing with stuff that's more putting off in a way. Like it's more hanging out in the doubt rather than making those decisions and recognizing what's the real key.
And also when something bad happens, like a disastrous, again, a different painting, but something didn't go right with this particular painting, again, literally right at the last minute. And then I had to go over it with another layer, and it turned out better. I was like, oh, well, guess that's what you wanted. Like, it was just one of those things that I really had to let go a lot in the sense of, like, raise my standard and hold that standard, but also, like, if it's got the feeling, let go. I don't need to overthink it, overdo it, because then you're just changing it, and making it different. You're not necessarily improving it.
It's an incredible push and pull, isn't it? Because we just talked about this idea of how your desire to have something that was very authentic, expressive, really to dig deep and put that out on the canvas. So there's a lot of vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
And then there's probably then the pull to want to do that and then somehow perfect things. I think that's what we're talking about, that kind of fussiness, that kind of, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this solo exhibition that's got my name over it. It's this huge room full of me on walls. Like, the more authentic we are and the more vulnerable, there's a more tendency, as you say, to start locking down on that, trying to make things perfect and kind of secure yourself at the same time as being vulnerable. But like you said, when we started talking, you said, I've let go of so much, and that really jumped out to me as well, because I think you were letting go and let go of those kind of safety nets of the fussing or the wanting it to be, trying to control the outcome.
Perfect. Yep.
So that was part of the letting go. I'm going to deliver this. This is what I want. I'm going to let go of those kind of other expectations, or which you've talked about a lot and has had an impact on me, the idea that a lot of the things that can maybe hang us up when we go into the studio is having fixed expectations about how the work's got to be. And so when the work doesn't meet those expectations, then we get all gunked up in like feeling bad about that and why isn't it like this? And instead of that, to let go of those expectations, to go with the work.
Oh my gosh.
So
I
that's
can literally
done.
gaze around everything in my studio, which was another whole separate topic about studio conditions. Yeah. But when I gaze around in memory of the space, there wasn't one painting that like performed exactly the way it was supposed to. And thank goodness I'd kind of gotten to the point where I could really go, well, what do you want to be? This is what I had planned for you, but now you're going to obviously tell me, and had to work through that. And I probably wouldn't have an exhibition hanging if I wouldn't have kind of overcome that hurdle of let's just see what happens along the way. And when it's not working, it's trying to tell me something. You know, when it's not working, it's trying to evolve into something better. Because here's the part that's so surprising. And I don't know why I'm still surprised by this, but it's always better than what I even imagined. And every time it happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool. So I just think that that was a huge part of the letting go, as well as being really open to interpretation. You know, again, when things didn't go right, and you know, and literally I could list every single painting of like, well, this happened to this one and this happened to this one. And I could literally do that on every single one of them. So I think they always go to another place. Like they grow, you know how we talk about like I've grown through the process. They actually grow through the painful experience as well and become something better. So it's very strange in that way. And I think if we can be open to that, I think the reason why there is 35 pieces is because I was just going with the flow. I was like, that's not working. What's next? Go, you know, and it was literally an ebb and flow experience of riding a roller coaster. And I think I got really comfortable of like, it's a good, it's a down, it's a good, it's a down. And it became
just keep going.
less emotional. You know, you can ask my family, they'll say it was a little different, but I literally didn't have meltdowns and cry, which there was times where the old me would have been like, let's just bust into some tears right now. That would be really good.
That'll be helpful.
Crumble. Yeah, that'll be helpful. Right at the very last thing that happened, I wanted to, but then I was like, I think it turned out better. It's all right. So it was just, you know, like, again, that thing of being really open to what it can be. And in the end, if you're open to that, it'll show you something that you couldn't think of. You know, and I think that's what's really fascinating. It's, you know, it takes you to a place that does push you out of your comfort zone, but it also takes you to a place that you can't even imagine that's even better. Because for me, they're all better than what I probably imagined. You know, in some ways, they came out differently, but everything that is there, it works and I'm proud of. You know, and I feel like it does express myself. Now, one of the challenges that I had, and it was a physical challenge, my space is very small. It's like a single car garage. It was so cramped. I was shimmying under and around, holding in my stomach as I'm passing through 2 paintings to get to another area. And then in the end, I had to move some paintings in the house because there was physically no room in the studio. So at one point I was painting on my kitchen table, which I found really frustrating after working in the studio for so long. And obviously no one could eat dinner there for like a week.
What's eating? Go out, kids. Go out and get some takeaway.
That was a whole nother thing.
Here's a few bucks.
The family was so supportive. Because then I had to hang a huge sculptural piece in the hallway. And I was like, no one's allowed to go out the front door or be in this hallway. You need to steer clear of this area. But yeah, they let me be immersed into it and very much let me be in that bubble. And there's been many bubbles, but this has definitely been one of the most intense bubbles I've been in. And them just letting me be in that was amazing. Amazing. I mean, amazing in the sense like when people can just get out of your way and let you do your thing, you know, and again, I feel this is where I had to set aside the mom guilt. I was like, okay, not going to buy into like, oh my gosh, I've just sent my son on his bike to go buy milk and any protein bars he can scrounge up because I can't cook. So it was really scrappy by all of us.
Yeah.
And my husband cooked us a really nice meal last night. And I was like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to eat normal meals. Like it really got scrappy from many angles. And yet I don't regret any of it. Like,
no.
You know, I don't for a minute regret it because it's hanging and it expresses what I want to express. It challenged me in ways I wanted to be challenged. It helped me grow in ways, you know, that I wanted to grow. And I think the other thing that I was really thinking about too is my husband has been one of my biggest fans and cheerleaders. And he always has this way of challenging me because he knows what I'm capable of, but I don't always see that I can do it. But it's like he's always got a little bit more belief in me than I have in me. And so he would be the one that would help me raise the bar. He's like, oh, I think you could do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? Should I really? Can I really? You know, and then the gallery would say, oh, that'd be awesome. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. So it's good to have people in your corner that can help see belief in your capabilities that you can't always see. I think we all need people in our lives to do that for us, because sometimes we're so close that we don't know how simple it could be. Because what's interesting is the one that I thought was going to be the hardest was one of the easiest ones. And I think that's because I had worked through so much through the volume of it that by the time I got to that, it was like, oh, I know you. This is how we're going to do you. And then the next time, this is how I'm going to do you even better. So I never really get too bogged down into, you know, it is what it is, in the sense of like, this is my best right now. And then I just learn from that and say, let's put that new vision into the next one, instead of beating myself up on what didn't go right with this one, you know, because in the end, no one knows that little magic twist that you want to put to it, which I don't even know, honestly, if people notice. But you know how we do get obsessed on these little magic twist things that we do to things. So anyway,
I think that what's amazing and what I'm taking away from our conversation today is that really beautiful combination that it feels to me like you've got a really good handle on, and I guess it'll just keep going, which is to have such a desire and a vision, like such a dedication, like a really strong, I'm not even sure that desire is a big enough word, but to have that really strong conviction, and yet also at the same time to let go of the control from having that such a strong feeling of what you want, to not hold on to it to so tightly, to be so controlling about it, that you have that, what you've just described, which is that exploration and that riding the roller coaster and not trying to hold it in one place, which is exactly what you need to do and needed to do and have shown to achieve that vision.
A lot to unpack. I feel like I've just skimmed the surface, really. But yeah, it really is this opening, you know, and less tightening and more open. And more trusting yourself, more trusting that you have something to share, and that what you have is good enough to share, and the universe will find a way to make it. You don't have to worry about that part. Honestly, it's more of just stick to really being true to who you are and honoring it, like all of it. And I think that's what I'm so excited about in this exhibition. Like, I really feel like it's the best version of showing all of it, all of me, you know, and that feels good. I think I'm feeling, you know, satisfied, and I guess definitely proud of the work, because I know what I put into it. I'm proud of the effort. I didn't leave anything in the tank, and I feel like I just feel really satisfied as an artist, holding that vision, you know, and just letting that come alive and sharing it. I mean, do I feel vulnerable? Yes, of course. But I feel really happy. Like, and that's the other thing. One last word of advice that I have fun. Oh my gosh. There was some crunch. The last week was chaos in terms of what I wanted to accomplish in the amount of time. And you know what I woke up thinking about was like, how can I have fun? How can I have fun? How can I have fun? This is it. Remember, this is it. This is what you asked for. How can I have fun?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Honestly, if we don't have fun, what are we doing?
Oh, I'm so happy for you. And I'm delighted, and congratulations. And now it's all done, everyone. It's open today. The paintings are there. Yes. The artwork's there at Fenton & Fenton in Melbourne. So by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have missed the official opening, which is this Saturday, the afternoon with the artist. But you still have time to see it, because you got a week. And failing that, for all of those who aren't lucky enough to be able to see it in person like me, we will be devouring those videos and images on Instagram. So please, Michele, do not hold back from spamming
Oh, there'll
us,
be no
because,
holding back.
Just send them direct to me. Whatever.
I've got all the time now to send them. And again, between my detailed shots and videos from the studio to Fenton and Fenton's amazing job at presenting them, there's a lot of beautiful images that really capture it very well. And I'm so blessed that they have such an amazing team. It's just a dream. Like, really, it's just so good. They're very good at what they do. So
I'm just so happy, and enjoy the opening, and just enjoy all this well-earned celebration of seeing your work in such a wonderful setting. And we will talk again real soon.